How's it going, folks? This is Mike back for a little bit of an update on what I've been collecting and some of the things I've been watching lately. And of course, if you're anything like me, you collect a lot more than you get around to watching, right? You all understand that. You're all collectors, so, or at least most of you are. So here we go. Before I start with the films, let me show you the latest copy of a very good horror film magazine called The Darksides. It's an English magazine. And look who is on the cover. Check that out. It's Princess Aza of the aristocratic Vida family, who has been lying in her coffin for 200 years. She has now risen from the grave to get treatment for this annoying skin condition, which puts holes in her face. And okay, so this magazine is very cool. It's got a big article about the films of Mario Bava and lots of photographs. And check this out. And it also has a very good interview with Judith O'Dea from The Night of the Living Dead. It's always nice to hear from her. So run out and buy that magazine, folks. Okay, so we just ended November, which of course is another Criterion Collection Barnes & Noble half-price sale. And I only picked up 3 things this month, and they were all American films. Starting with The Graduate, which I already have on another release, but I wanted to get all the extra features and the best print that I could. This is a DVD, not a Blu-ray, but Criterions are always good, even on DVD. And yeah, this is such an important film for my generation. So I wanted to watch it again in pristine condition. Another American film from the 1942, Sullivan's Travels, Preston Sturges film starring Joel McCrea and Veronica Lake. This is a movie I like very much. I also have another low case release of this, but I wanted to get the best I could. And finally, I got this on Blu-ray. This is another Jim Jarmusch film, Down by Law, from the year 1986, starring John Lurie, Tom Waits, and Roberto Benigni. Also featuring Ellen Barkin and Nicoletta. What is her name? She is married to Roberto Benigni. I cannot pronounce her name, but it's Nicoletta something or other. Yeah. So this is a great movie. I had never seen this before. I absolutely loved it. And I probably wouldn't have gotten the Blu-ray if the DVD had been available. But I'm very happy that I have this. And it's really something. So I found myself becoming a real fan of the actor John Lurie, who is also a musician. He's a painter, really interesting guy. And I want to try to find as many of his films as I can get. Also, Tom Waits is very, very good as an actor. I've always liked his music. I have a lot of his LPs that I collected back in the 1970s. And he is a very good actor. Just such a unique face and a unique personality. So, yeah, I'm very happy that I got this. So, a couple of things I bought at Big Lots just a little while ago. I found this steel book of MASH for $5. And I was so happy to get this MASH. Now, I saw MASH when it first came out, which was, 1970? And again, another iconic film for my generation. But that is the only time I've ever seen it. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with this again. And my friend Rob of Rob's Movie Collection also showed this. So we went to the same Big Lots sale. I think he paid a little bit less for it than I did, but I'm not complaining. Okay. Also, at the same Big Lots sale, I picked up this Steve McQueen film called Tom Horn, from, I think, 1980, which I've never seen. And I believe this was one of Steve McQueen's last films. It may have been his next to the last film. I know the last one he did was The Getaway with Ally McGraw. At least I'm pretty sure it was. And, yeah, I never saw this, but this is kind of the older version of Steve McQueen. But it'd be fun. It'd be fun to watch. Okay, so some of the things I sent away from in the last month or so, I thought it might be entertaining to start looking at old detective movies series from the 1930s and 1940s, because I always liked watching those, and I thought it might be fun to start collecting them as just sort of binge watching things like Charlie Chan and The Thin Man. I mean, I love a lot of those films. I don't have all the Charlie Chan films, but I do have the Thin Man collection. Those are terrific. So one series that I always kind of liked back in the days when I actually had Turner Classic Movies, which I don't have anymore, I used to watch a lot of The Falcon Mysteries. 13 films made between 1941 and 1946. And the first 3 starred George Sanders. And the name of the character Well, okay, the name of the character in the stories, his name was Gay Stanhope Falcon. So Falcon was actually his last name. And for some reason in the films, they kept the name Gay for the first name, and they changed his last name to Lawrence. And the name Falcon was just his nickname as a detective. So that doesn't make much sense, but that's what they did. So anyway, it started out with George Sanders as that character. He made 3 films, and then in the 4th film, which is called The Falcon's Brother, they introduced the real-life brother of George Sanders, who was Tom Conway, and he took over the series after that. The gay Falcon character was killed off. I probably shouldn't tell you that, but I am telling you that. He was killed off, and his brother Tom Lawrence took over. So yeah, and it's interesting because the the 3rd film in this series, which George Sanders was the star, it's called The Falcon Takes Over, 1942, and that is the first film that was based on the very famous novel by Raymond Chandler called Farewell, My Lovely. And so that's kind of interesting. They would use that for this grade B mystery series. These were all made at RKO. Very good for cinematography. They look like little film noirs. You know, they only lasted a little more than an hour. And they're just full of very interesting actors that show up in a lot of films over the years. And some of them are, like in the first movie, they had Gladys Cooper. They had James Gleason in some of the films. Turhan Bey. Jane Randolph, who was also in some of the other RKO films like Cat People, Curse of the Cat People, and also in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. They had people like Barbara Hale when she was just starting out, Harriet Hilliard, who of course later was known as Harriet Nelson, and just a lot of interesting people. Lawrence Tierney shows up in one of them, so I thought it might be fun to start binge watching all these detective things. Another detective series, and I haven't seen any of these at all. This is Boris Karloff starring as Mr. Wong, detective. These films were made at Monogram between 1938 and 1940, and there are only 6 of the films. But it's kind of a low budget takeoff on the fairly low budget Charlie Chan films, using another white actor to play an Oriental, which they did a lot of back in those days. So yeah, I thought this might be kind of fun to see good old Boris in some of his low-budget gems. I also picked up these 3 films from oldies.com, another detective series called Bulldog Drummond. And I've never seen any of these, so I don't know anything about them, but they were very cheap, and I thought it might be fun to take a chance. Bulldog Drummond comes back, Arrest Bulldog Drummond, and Bulldog Drummond's Revenge. And the guy that plays the detective is named John Howard. I believe he's an English actor. And John Barrymore plays in the films also. I think he plays the inspector or something like that. So I need to get into these and find out what Bulldog Drummond is all about. There were a whole bunch of these made, and I may, if I like these, I might go back and buy some more. Bulldog Drummond. Anybody ever seen any of these? I don't know anything about them, but I don't know. Sounds kind of cool. All right. So enough of the detective series. I also picked up this silent film from the Warner Brothers Archive collection. This is a film from 1926 called La Boheme, starring Lillian Gish and John Gilbert. Now, I've heard a lot of wonderful things about this. Of course, the story is based on the concept from the opera La Boheme, and you might not know this, but the modern musical, Broadway musical and film musical called Rent is also based on La Boheme. So they kind of modernized that whole story, but Lillian Gish, by this time, she was almost a legendary name in Hollywood. She had made all those films in the 1910s and going on into the early 1920s for D.W. Griffith, and was a huge star in silent films. And she went to MGM in 1925, and she signed a very good contract for an actress. She was given choice of material, she was given choice of directors and co-stars, and this was the first film she made for them. It was a huge success. So yeah, I'm very anxious to get into this silent classic. All right, and on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, something else I picked up. This is Andy Warhol's Dracula, which is also called Blood for Dracula, directed by Paul Morrissey, like all the other, most of the other Andy Warhol films were. Joe D'Alessandro stars in this with Udo Kier playing the character of Dracula. Now, I saw this back in the day. I think it came out in, 74, 75, something like that. And it was a bloody mess. I remember seeing it, and I've never seen it since. But yeah, I just thought it would be kind of fun to experience this again. I'm not sure I have the stomach for it, but I'm going to try. Okay, now some other things that I watched. I watched 3 classic films from the Golden Age that I had never seen before. One of them is The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, which I bought on Blu-ray for $5 again at Big Lots. And Gene Tierney, Rex Harrison, and George Sanders, 1947. I absolutely love this. It just blew me away. And I have to admit, I was crying by the end of it. It's just a beautiful romantic story. Of course, has the ghostly atmosphere. It takes place in England, in a big house on a cliff by the sea. And when it first started out, I was thinking of The Uninvited, the other ghost story that took place on a beautiful house on the cliff with the raging sea below. And that's what it made me think of at first. But then the ghostly aspect of the film kind of gave way to this very interesting friendship and eventually kind of a romance between these 2 people, one living, one dead. Rex Harrison was really good. I haven't seen a lot of Rex Harrison in my movie watching, but yeah, what a voice. And then you have George Sanders, of course, once again, just who plays a womanizing rake. Nobody can do that like he can. And Gene Tierney is just absolutely beautiful. So I'm very happy that I saw that. I also saw another Humphrey Bogart classic, film noir, that I had never seen before, on this Turner Classic Movies compilation of 4 gangster films, all starring Bogart. And I saw High Sierra from the year 1941, also starring Ida Lupino. It just absolutely blew me away. I mean, I was going through the documentary and reading something about this, and Bogart had been slowly building up his reputation as a good actor all through the 1930s. And by the time he got to this is the film that started to put him over as a big star. And the same year, a little bit later, he did The Maltese Falcon, and then he was one of the biggest stars in the world after that. But this was a fantastic movie. I was really surprised. It was one of those sitting on the edge of your seat type films, even in your nice, comfortable TV room. So highly recommend that to everybody. I also saw an Alfred Hitchcock film that I'd never seen. Again, on a Turner Classic Movies compilation, 4 Hitchcock films. I watched The Wrong Man, starring Henry Fonda and Vera Miles, from the year 1956. Widescreen, black and white, great film. And it's not a Hitchcock film that I've actually heard many people talk about, but I was very, very surprised at how good it was. So yeah, the only one. Well, let's see. This also has I Confess with Montgomery Clift. Of course, Strangers on a Train, which I've seen many times. Have not seen I Confess. Suspicion with Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine. I think I've seen that, but I really don't remember. So I will watch it again. Okay. And finally, this is a film that's from the 1990s, I believe. I'm not sure what the date is. It's a German film. Now, Dave Koenig sent me this film, and I just now got around to watching it. It's called Run, Lola, Run, which I didn't know what to expect. I was expecting it to be violent and a little bit, I didn't know what to expect, really. I was expecting violence, of course. It was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this. Just about a young girl living in, I guess it's Berlin, I'm not sure, somewhere in Germany, kind of a bohemian lifestyle with her boyfriend. Unfortunately, the boyfriend makes his living by selling drugs and getting involved with all kinds of bad characters. And it just she literally runs through the entire film. It's basically takes the same slice of her life with her boyfriend, this very potentially tragic situation where they go through it 3 times, and each time is a slightly different way, but the conclusion of it is actually very positive. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. Terrific electronic music going through it as she's running through the city and encounters a lot of different interesting people. Yeah, I had a great time. Okay, that's my update. It's almost 15 minutes. You're probably sick of watching me and listening to me, but if you're not, please what? Please ask me questions or tell me if you've seen any of these movies, and I am going to turn this off now.